All right. I am so excited. I have Dr. Faye MANDELL, the one and only, in front of me, who's looking amazing, South Florida. Is that where you're at? Where are you at, Faye?
Fort Lauderdale.
That's why you're so tan and your hair and you look incredible today, I got to admit. So here's the deal with Dr. Faye, or just Faye in general, is she does numerous amounts of podcasts, tons of different coaching. And she works with all these different people. And I've known her for a certain amount of time. I've been following her. And what I'm trying to do is kind of show a different side of her more than anything. And I have watched, numerous amounts of podcasts with her, and it's honestly amazing what she does, which we're going to get into that in a little bit. But what I want to show my audience with Faye is, first to know who she is. I want my audience to learn about, the girl from the Bronx, went on to Boston College, received your master's, went on to work with Fortune 500 companies and nonprofits. You wrote a couple books. There's this word self-powerment that I think you kind of created because I love everything regarding confidence. And, I just want first people to know who you are. You know what I mean? And kind of like, let's go back a little. We don't have to go back to when you're a child, but you growing up in the Bronx when it was the Bronx is interesting in itself. And I don't think a lot of people know this sometimes. So let's start with that.
Okay. So I was born in the Bronx, and my mother wanted to be a tango dancer in her life. And she never got to be a tango dancer. I was born dancing before I was walking. So I was going to manifest her greatness in the world of dance. Okay, so I'm told when I was 2 years old, and I was going to dancing school. So I was in the Bronx, which didn't even know from dancing. I was a dancer, and I was very not interested at all in school. I just couldn't wait to get finished with school so I could go to dancing school. And they even put a mirror and a bar in my bedroom as a kid, so that I could practice. I mean, that's how much I was supported in the fact that I was living my mother's dream. I also happened to like dancing, so that was a good thing. And so we were very compatible in that way. Yeah. So I did that, and in New York City, if you go to public school, they have like the third grade, 3-1 for the smart kids, 3-2 for the middle kids, and 3-3 for the dummies, okay? So I was always in 3-2 or 4-2 because I wasn't smart, because I wasn't interested, and I wasn't dumb, and I would go to the office every day and work in the office. I would sort their mail, I would put the file for them. That's what I did when I went to school, because nobody was interested in me because I was just, in the middle. And they were interested in me because I could do all their work for them. Yeah. And so I did that up until the 6th grade. In the 6th grade, we took a test. Okay. And the test was these abstract things that you had to put this. I thought it was phenomenal, and I was finished in 10 minutes, and I left. Right. And I got a call from school. My parents got a call from school the next week, and they said, "You have to come to school." And I said, and they sat me down and said, "Okay, Faye, what did you do?" And I said, "I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. I was just being me. I can't. No." So they went to school, and they found out that I had the highest score on this test of everybody in the city. So they had to move me now from 6'2" to 6'1", and now I was with the smart kids. Okay. All of a sudden, right from one day to the next day, I went from 6'2" to 6'1".
Right.
But I had an angel. The teacher in 6'1" was a gift. I even remember her name. Her name was Miss Harris, and she taught me the value of the mind. Right. She taught me poetry. She taught me art. She taught me science. She taught me math. She taught me that the mind was a glorious thing, as well as the body. But I have, from the beginning, I always believed in the rhythm and motion and frequency of the body from the time I was born. I value that and trust that more than I trust anything cognitive. So that's where I came from. And then I got rejected from the High School of Performing Arts because I am only 5 feet tall. And when I was growing up, you had to be Maria Tall Chief, and Maria Tall Chief was 6 feet tall and white and thin, and I was had I grown up when Alvin Ailey came along, I think I would have been a dancer at this point. But so I became a juvenile delinquent is what I did. And so we moved from the Bronx because my parents were afraid that I was going to get into serious trouble. We moved to Queens, which was another whole world. Another whole world. I mean, women did their hair, put makeup on. We never did any of that in the Bronx. We stole cars. We did this. We, did nothing. So, so I moved to Queens. And I didn't know what I was going to do, so they sent me to State University of New York at Potsdam to be an elementary school teacher because that was what everybody did. They had to do something because we had to go. I mean, it was a given when we were born that we were going to go to college.
Right.
And then I took my first psychology course with my psychology professor, who was a bass player. And so he was a rhythm guy too, so I loved him right away. And that's it. I decided I was going to be a psychologist. I came home and I said, I'm going to be a psychologist. And they said, you'll never be a psychologist. You have to get a Ph.D. You don't like school, So, but I said, yes, I'm going to do it. And I did it. I got a master's in clinical psych and a Ph.D. in counseling psych from Boston College. And then I moved to Cambridge. And there's a whole story about Cambridge. Shall I go on with the Cambridge story?
Yeah. You know what? Let me ask you something, though.
Of course.
Out of curiosity. My mother's dream was to be a dancer as well. Right? So when you got turned down, you want to be a dancer throughout your entire life. When you got turned down, what type of impact did that have in your life? Like, do you think that was a big part of you becoming, like a whole different type of person to a certain degree?
Because I don't do anything like halfway. So I went from dancing 5 times a week in school. Oh, and I went to Mr. Levinoff, who was around the corner from Carnegie Hall. I had to take the train because my regular teacher from the Bronx said that I was too good. I had to go to Mr. Levinoff, so I went to Mr. Levinoff, and he would have a stick. And if your leg wasn't exactly the way it was supposed to be, So, but I loved it. I wasn't as lithe as the other girls, but I was good. I was good, but I wasn't. I didn't fit the mold. And what I learned so much from that experience. I learned that I could rebound. That that maybe this is in retrospect, of course. That maybe that wasn't my path. I learned that I could use what I want my experience of dance for the rest of my life.
Right. The discipline, right? The mindset.
And rhythm and motion.
Right.
That is the thing. I trust the frequencies of what resonates with me in the world rather than what somebody's telling me.
Right. The feeling, you're saying the emotional, when you say that, correct?
Feeling, which actually translates to a frequency when you're experiencing it biologically.
Right.
So, and I don't tell this to very many people, but I don't listen to the content of what most people say. I'm not interested. I listen to where that content takes us in time and space, which we'll talk about later. But also, I resonate. I come in to a room with a certain resonance, and I follow that resonance around the room. And when somebody has a similar kind of resonance, that's the person that I go and talk to. It doesn't matter their age, their socioeconomic status, their color, their gender. It doesn't even make a difference. It matters that they resonate with me. Right.
It's an emotional kind of connection, like the energy you're saying. I always say you go where your energy leads you, right? Yes. Is that what you do?
Yes, exactly. I call it rhythm and motion because I'm a dancer.
Right. And you gravitate towards others that are giving you a much better vibe. Is that what that you can jive with and have some really, and you're kind of, when you're having conversations, you're not just listening to the words, you're looking at their actions.
No, I'm feeling them.
You're strictly feeling off, or getting, right. I gotcha.
That's where I play. When they do my astrological chart, everything is on the very bottom. All in the first little bottom of the whole chart. The whole rest of the chart is empty. And the bottom is the intense, primitive feelings.
I love it.
Yeah. I loved my chart. I thought it was fabulous.
I have always, and people thought I was crazy because I'm always kind of caught up with feelings later in life. It was later after like my late teens. I worked out all the time, and there was a bodybuilder there that trained other people, Faye. And he'd be like, telling his people that he was trans, like, how do you feel? You know, all these things, how do you feel? And I'd be like, how many times this, you know, while you're doing the set, before you worked out, I should say, while you're working out, after, and everything was about feelings with this guy. But I started to understand through working out, which in turn, then I started to even close my eyes. And a lot of times, even when I talk, which I'm trying to stop doing, I'm always closing my eyes while having discussions because I'm trying to feel what they're saying, not just comprehend what they're saying, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just going to show you, there's a wonderful book. Where is it? Right here. It should be right here. Oh, it's not here. It's not here. It's called How the World Can Be the Way It Is by this guy, Steve Hagen. I read it a long time ago.
Okay.
And he's the one who taught me about random as the order of the universe. And he says, you buy a deck of cards, and it's all hearts from 1 to the king, and it's all spades, it's all. But you start shuffling the cards. By the 7th shuffle, what are you going to get? You're going to get random.
Okay.
And if you shuffled it 10 times, what are you going to get? Random. And then you shuffle it 100 times, what are you going to get? Random. And then it says, so then random is indeed the order of the universe. And I go, you gotta be kidding me. This I was on the plane, it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I go, oh my God, it's like, and then I realized that random is just the way that the quantum field operates. For our little Neanderthal brain, it looks random, but there is a logic in the quantum world of how all of it ties together. But it looks very random to us when things begin to happen, So it's a wonderful book, but what he talked about was the difference between perception and conceptualization.
Okay.
And perception is the way that we experience through our 5 senses, plus Jason just told me, plus the mind, which is the 6th sense, because there's a lot goes on in the mind before thought. So there's our 5 senses, that's perception. And then our conceptualization, which is the abstraction or the subjective experience of perception.
When you talk, it's sometimes like unbelievable. Let me ask you one more thing, Faye.
Of course.
Before we go a little, yeah.
I love to be authentic as a role model, because so many people don't even know what that means. But I just want to sidebar this. I did an interview for a friend of mine. She's going for a very big job in New York City, and so the person wanted to interview 5 references. And she used me as one because she has a master's in executive coaching from Columbia, and she used my model as her thesis. And so there was a reason why she picked me. And at the end of the conversation, the woman said, "I just want to thank you for such an authentic conversation."
Yeah, I believe.
So, yeah, that's what she said. I was very grateful that I was able to help my friend that way.
I don't mean to throw this in the mix a little bit, but I like catching people off guard a little bit. So let's say, just very quickly, we don't have to get long-winded on it. The law of attraction.
Yep.
What's your perception on that? Because I presume it's different than what most people would say.
I believe in my knowing that there are no charges. There are no positives and there are no negatives. There are only ises. And that we can take out of the is what is going to be resourceful because the universe brought it in front of us. So I don't believe in positive attracts a positive. Actually, and I do believe that a positive and a negative cancel each other out so that you can see the truth. So that when somebody is doing something negative, I always ask them to do something positive, or positive, I ask them to do something difficult so that they get a sense of the balance, like the wheels, not the, what do you call it, the injustice. They have the scales of justice. They have to balance. Once they balance, you cancel out and you see what the truth is. And there is no charges. Nature doesn't have charges. It just has isness.
Interesting. Yeah. Because I know when you speak, it's just different than most people, right?
Yes.
All right, let's jump. Now you're out of college, right? Let's go fast forward a little bit here. So you left college with your degree and all, because it seems like you had your own journey to go on. It didn't seem like you were following any other path, which is so unique in itself. And even, like I said, you use certain words that you create. And Where did you get the confidence to do this? Especially, back in the day, I don't need to mention your names, but it wasn't easy for someone like you, especially growing up in New York, then going to Boston, then moving on, and then working with 500 Fortune 500 companies. Who gave you that confidence and that awareness and that empowerment? Where did this all come from?
It stems from that little girl who knew that her information from the world was different than what other people were inputting. They were inputting stuff from the outside, and I was inputting stuff from the inside. So from the very beginning, I knew that they were all in error. I just didn't know how to work with a world that didn't understand that they were not, that they were living in the matrix.
Okay.
And I understood that from the very, 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 very beginning. But I didn't have the skills at that time, the cognitive skills, the experience, the technology, the research that I got in graduate school. So I went to graduate school to be a psychologist. And I learned how to do psychotherapy. That's what I did.
Okay.
And I went directly out of school, opened my own practice. And I took people off the street, literally. She said, come talk to me, I'll charge you $5 or something like that.
Right.
But I was living in Cambridge, Massachusetts at the time. And in Cambridge, Massachusetts, there's an informal rule that you have to be learning all the time. So you would say, hello, what are you studying? Hello, what are you studying? And so I went to Cambridge Adult Education to get the book, to take a course. Doesn't matter how many letters or numbers you have after your name, you have to still be learning. And the book was about this thick. And so I decided I was just going to point my finger. That was before I understood random is the order of the universe. And I thought I'd take meditation or photography or whatever. And the course was called Quantum Physics in the Face of God. Now, number one, I had never taken a physics course in my life. I had no idea what quantum physics is, never mind physics. And two, I'm not particularly religious. So I'm culturally Jewish, but I'm not religiously Jewish. And so I had no idea why this course was my finger gravitated, but I took it. It was a Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. It was given by a man called Fred Allen Wolf, who was in this movie called What's the Bleep? I don't know whether anybody has ever heard of that movie, but it's a story. The content is just a story, but it's interrupted every 5 minutes by a quantum physicist and also by a biologist to say what's going on in the physical world and what's going on in the internal world. It's a phenomenal movie. You can see it on Gaia TV, Gaia, I think it is, TV. It's wonderful. And he changed my life.
Wow.
Changed my entire path, my journey.
Mm.
So, and I wasn't even going to take it because it was a Friday night, Saturday and Sunday. Friday night in Cambridge was fun and blah, blah, blah. But I took it, I brought two friends. We sat in the back, not expecting to understand anything, and it changed my entire life. Because he taught me about the equation E equals mc squared. Okay. And he taught me that energy equals matter times the speed of light squared. So if you can go 286,000 miles per second squared, very fast, this table would be white light. And I said, that's ridiculous. It's solid. I can bang it. This kid is not going to do it. But it started me on the quest to discover what is real and what is an illusion. I've been on that quest ever since. And what I have concluded in a more global sense is that everything we believe is true is not.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
Do you think when you speak, though, sometimes you're either way over people's heads or they think you're like, she doesn't know what she's talking about? Do you get a lot of backlash? It feels like people are with you maybe or against you.
Well, that's how I discovered that, how I be, which is I bring my A game to whatever I do. And I'm not attached to the outcome of whether they buy it or whether they don't buy it. I'm bringing this is my job in life. It's everybody's job, really, to bring their A game and not be attached to an outcome. Because the universe will guide you from that place. Mm. So that's how I work. I just bring my A game all the time.
Is it so? Let's get into how you how do some people believe in you and they're very open-minded to letting you coach them, say a Fortune 500 company or even somebody independent? What do you think gravitates, each one of you to one another, where somebody else say is like, she's off her rocker, right? She's just gone. How do they find you, and how do you really not manipulate, how do you help some of these people that either want your help, that don't know how to utilize it, all these things? How do you go about that?
Okay, so the first thing is that I gravitate towards people who are curious. Einstein said he was not very smart, but he was insatiably curious. So I'm always sniffing out for who's curious about wanting to know about other things that are different than what they experience and perceive and conclude in their belief systems.
Okay.
So curiosity is my number one variable. If you're curious and you want to know about something different than what is, you're my person, okay?
Right.
The next thing is, I tell them a main difference, that I'm not interested in the content of what you say, but I'm interested where that content takes you in time and space. And they go, what? I said, listen to the grammar. Like, what if? That takes you to the future. Shoulda,
Right.
coulda, woulda. That takes you to the past. He, she, they takes you to other people and things. So you want to be I am. Okay? So I begin to give them a way to reframe how they listen and what they're listening to. And when they do that and understand that once they know where they are in time and space, they know what feeling they didn't attend to, and they feel the feeling, which jumpstarts the superior intelligence of the body, and the body does the rest. So that's why feelings are inextricably fundamental.
Yeah.
Because they jumpstart the superior intelligence of the body. But I give them a whole different frame. I said, their emotional well-being has nothing to do with a thing that invades you, like depression or schizoaffective disorder or paranoia. Those are labels that people put on in the 17th century to try to explain what is going on with people. They tried really hard. But emotional health is not about these processes. It's about a place in which these processes don't exist.
Mm.
So it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it's a whole different mindset.
A whole different ballgame. And the people who work with me change. That's how they stay with me, and that's how they give me the referrals, and that's how they give me all the stuff, because they are no longer suffering.
Wow. And this works too, not just for business, for health and wellness and everything.
Of course.
I mean, you're a living proof of that. Like, what you've been through in life, just like, I think everybody's going to go through some type of issue throughout their life when it comes to health and wellness, or financial, or, all these different types of things.
Or
relationships.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is that what I love to find are people who are curious.
Right.
They have to be curious, because I take something that I spent 8 years doing, getting a master's with a thesis and a Ph.D. and studying and taking orals and finals and all of this stuff, to say that it doesn't work.
Wow. You get a lot of backlash for a lot of stuff you do and say to a certain degree, but I mean, you're not huge on social media, but again, what's the feedback you get sometimes from others when you do other I've seen some of your podcasts. I notice sometimes maybe you get disputes with other people, or they don't believe what you're saying, or
never disputes, because I don't like conflict. I don't, I present who I am. I present the stuff, and
right.
Either people are going to buy it and say, I want to learn it, I want to know more about it, or they say, this other guy says this, and Sam Harris says this, and this guy says this, and they compare it to other work, and then I know that they're just not there. And so I look at them because I only want to work with people at this point in my process who want to change.
Right. Yeah, and I love that you wrote 2 books, and one of them's for parents, right?
Yes. One is called The Children's Book for Parents.
Yeah. Can you Tell me a little bit about that, because I don't hear you talk all the time about that, at least that's what I've seen.
I actually am giving a talk in Arizona in May to a whole group of people. It's this group called Kids at Hope. And they partnered with me because they do connect, believe, and time travel with kids, high-risk kids. But they found that the model, being present, is what allows them to connect, believe, and time travel. So we have made a dance with one another, and I'm going to present it to their master's class in Arizona for a week.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the basics, there's one basic, it's one sentence, and that's all it is. You have to go into the world of the child and not demand that the child come into your world.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's it.
I love it. Yeah. I have two daughters. They both had health issues. One had a liver transplant when she was younger, and the other one has type 1 diabetes. Being around a lot of sick children and in hospitals for numerous amounts of time. And, you know, it's just to go through those type of things, you take a different approach on, I think, sometimes being a parent, which is quite interesting when I was, you know, looking at your book. And, you know, you're on a whole different level. But here's I don't want to forget this in this. So your other book is the GPS to Self-Powerment. And like I was saying earlier, that word, is that a trademark word with you, or?
That's a word I created because most people, they still call the book self-empowerment. Empowerment means that you require something that's going to empower you.
Yes.
But self-empowerment is, it's all inside you already. You just have to connect to it.
Interesting.
That's
Gotcha.
it. So it's called self-empowerment, and that's a new word. There's and I use sounds too, because sometimes there aren't words for what I'm talking about. So when you go from putting your attention on your stories to putting your attention on your feelings, it's like, that's a sound. Because it totally shifts everything, because you're no longer in the world of abstraction, you're in the world of experience. It's different.
Yeah, when I try to help men with confidence, you know, or their image and things, what's interesting is a lot of men don't want to admit that they have all these feelings, right? They're embarrassed to talk about their feelings, or embarrassed to react to certain things. It could be crying.
Can you help me out? Operationally define the word embarrassed. What does that mean when you speak it?
Yeah, exactly. Like ashamed, I guess, to a certain degree.
Okay, ashamed is a more powerful word than
Right.
embarrassed. Okay? It has a deeper seated meaning. It's that there's bad or something like that.
Yeah.
So I believe that women have the same issue, just different feelings, you know. But I believe that all this culture has been taught that feelings are bad. The definition of feelings in the dictionary is wrong. Feelings are information from the body which create actions that allow you to stay in homeostasis. That's all they are. The information happening all the time to say this is not right or this is not right. So, you know, if you go to yoga and you sweat a lot, you know, then you have to drink a lot.
Right.
Okay, the body gets, you know, mouth gets dry, you start getting cravings for whatever, drink what. So it gives you this information all the time to keep your body in homeostasis so that everything is working like a BMW, like a great machine, and that all the parts are coordinated with one another. That's the function of a feeling.
Right. I agree.
It's not this histrionic, dramatic, hysterical thing. Those are what we call feeling thoughts.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Feeling doesn't get attended to. It has to create a thought, puts itself on a thought like a horseback rider on a horse, and gets discharged that way. So what we think are thoughts are really not thoughts. They are created by feelings, and thoughts have two components. We just put our attention on the story part of it, but I ask people to put their attention on the grammar part of it, or the structure part of it, how the actual thought is created, using tenses and pronouns, because that lets you know where you are in time and space.
Wow, you're tight with this. You're deep here. So you get so deep with this. It's so, It's so fluent with you. Is that the word? I hope I used the word right.
Yes.
Word there.
It's just not fluid. It's just part of how I experience the world. I don't know how to talk any other way. I don't know how to, what I'm interested in, what I focus on, what is important for people to be happy. And by the way, happiness, the root verb of the word happiness is to happen. So when you're fully experiencing what is happening, you have achieved happiness. It's not this thing with the lambs and the bows and running through the fields. That's created by the culture. We can never, ever, ever achieve that.
Mm. So, I mean, really what you talk about, am I wrong? Is it basically just a high level self-awareness? Would you kind of?
Totally a whole other level of consciousness.
Right. So it's beyond self-awareness.
That was really a nice, beautiful.
Yeah. Because I'm all about, you're at another level, but all about a lot of things. And that's why we got introduced to one another. I think there's a lot of similarities between feelings and believing in yourself, believing in others, going where your energy leads you. And, I think a lot of us have ups and downs, no matter who you are, in my opinion.
Of course.
But it's really, my thing, as you know, is a lot about helping people with their confidence to be able to change or evolve into what they want to evolve into.
So the bottom line of that one is, if you are connected to who you were meant to be when the sperm hit the egg, okay, and you recognize that there are 8 billion sperms and that one sperm hit that one egg and you won the lottery.
Yeah.
When that happened, then you have to have confidence because you won the lottery.
Yeah.
How could you not feel that you were meant for something when if any one of those other 8 billion hit, you wouldn't even be here talking to me?
Wow. Yeah, I know. I've heard that before. And I think I've seen you say that before. Oh, yeah. You're deep with this stuff. My goodness.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
What, deep?
Yeah.
Yeah, in my perception, you look at things so differently. And I love that about you when I think of deep. I don't mean just emotionally deep. But when some people, it goes so far into them, I guess you could say, when I say deep, your mind just keeps going into places and thinks about things in such a different perspective than anyone else.
That is the truth, because it is an entirely different perspective. There's something that I associated to that is very, very important. The sword in the Star Wars that allowed
Saber?
Yeah, allowed him to do everything.
Okay.
Our sword is attention.
Okay.
We have the capacity to choose where to put our attention.
Yes.
This is the key. Most people put their attention on what's happening outside, and then they do their reaction to what's happening outside.
Mm.
I put my attention to how I want to be, no matter what is happening outside.
Focus? Is that basically what you're saying?
It's shifting the attention to how I want to be, how much attention I want to put on something, how big I want to make it, how small I want to make it, how valuable I want to make it, how, there's this book called Nature Loves to Hide by Shimon Malin, physicist, really good. 3 people, the skeptic, the protagonist, and the narrator. And at the very end, the skeptic does something like really good, and the guide says, how did you do that? What kind of a way? He said, I just made it small. Mm-hmm. No matter what it is that is going on with you in your life, you have the capacity to make it small.
Wow. When you say small, you mean where you're in control of it? That's what you mean?
Yes, and not only so, I mean, it could be like something like what I have, the disease that I have. I make it very small. I don't even attend to it until I have to go do something about it. Go to get blood or whatever. I don't have to do anything. It doesn't take up space in my being.
Interesting. Right. You don't blow it out of proportion. You don't make it a lot bigger. You don't make it about every aspect of your life. You make it the smallest part of your life, your illness.
Exactly. Because I choose. It's all about control.
Right.
And I choose where to put my attention, and that's our sword. Because other people
Yeah.
make things that are ridiculous big.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of people feel bad because they want for themselves more and they just don't know how to go after it, or they feel like they're selfish or self-centered? They kind of get caught up with making everybody else happy in their lives and not focusing in on themselves.
I believe that when you give to other people and you don't give to yourself, you give with unconscious resentment all the time.
Hmm.
So you're
Okay.
never getting clean, okay? If you take care of yourself first, there's still plenty of energy to give to everybody else, and you give clean with no expectation of anything in return, no attachment to outcome. You're just being of service. So the whole thing about selfish is a culturally made up thing to make people feel bad. It has nothing to do with healthy self-care is the most important thing you can do, because then you're in the state where you're handled. When you're handled, you can give to everybody else clean.
Wow. Yeah. Different mindset.
Totally different.
Totally different mindset. It's like it's just a whole different lifestyle that you teach as well.
A whole different lifestyle. It really is. And more and more and more and more, I find that the people who live this way now have to change their whole lifestyle. They have
Yeah.
to try to change the people that they hang out with. Unless those people are willing to change, they don't want to live in the same place. They don't want to, eat the same food. They want to eat healthier food. They don't go crazy like being 100% vegan all the time. But you have a deliberate consciousness and awareness that food is medicine. And so you want to take care of yourself. You want to give yourself the best medicine to prevent problems as you can.
Mm, interesting. Do you find it hard to like have a lot of friends or be in relationships or certain things because of the way you think so differently? Because I always wondered that with.
It's not the way I think, it's the way I be.
You're right.
It's how I be. So that's the first one. And I really don't believe that you need a lot of friends if you're your own friend. I mean, I love my company.
Right.
This weekend I entirely was inundated with football. I watched football from 1 o'clock on Saturday till 12 o'clock on Saturday night, and then again on Sunday, and then
Right.
again last night on Monday Night Football. We only have a couple more weeks, but I love football. Okay, so why do I love football? Because it reminds me of a ballet. It
Yeah.
reminds me of everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing at the right time, and
Yeah.
it just looks exquisite. So I'm a football fan, and I love to do yoga, and I love to read.
Right.
I love to um, just be. I just love to be, and that doesn't require other people.
Right.
I like other people. I really do. I love my children and I love my friends. But I don't have 1,000 friends.
Right. Right. I get it. You love doing what you love to do.
I do.
Yeah, yeah. I watch a lot of football too. But, who I'm with is an obsessed football fan, Rhea, and she's a Duck. So she does the college and the pro, and
Yeah.
we record all the games. She's obsessed with football as well. It's you date somebody too, or you're with somebody, or you live with somebody, or you're in a relationship with them, and they have that. I never was with somebody who loved football to the level that she loves it, which is even more than me, which kind of threw it back because I love football. But it's when you find somebody who has the same interests as you, not over the top.
Yes.
I
Right.
was going to ask you this question because a lot of times I talk about when it comes to relationships, it's not always finding somebody who has that much in common with you. I mean, to a certain degree, but I like finding or being in a relationship with somebody who's much different than I am because I can learn from them. And I'm kind of going on a path with them that is also much different than the path that I've lived or am living. What do you think about that? Or should you date somebody or get in a relationship with somebody who has more in common with you or less? Or what's your perspective on that?
Well, I have been married 3 different times. I've had hundreds of relationships. So
Really?
I have a vast amount of experience in this area. And I'm by myself now, by choice. If I wanted to, I could be in any kind of relationship, living in some country club, playing golf, and I could do that.
Sure.
But I really believe that it's not the person, it's their qualities.
Mm-hmm.
They could be older, or they could be younger, or they could be a different color, or they could be a different, work in construction. It doesn't matter. What matters is, can you see the world the same?
Interesting.
Because if they see the world differently than you see the world, then you're going to have judgments and comparisons and who's right and who's wrong. And I can't play in that because I do alchemy. Like I take the best of you and the best of me, and we come up with a new third thing.
Okay.
So it's never that you're right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and you're wrong. It's just a way of being with people that looks for we're looking for the truth always.
Gotja. Yeah.
Successive approximations to the goal of truth. You know what I mean? And so if somebody comes up with something that's more evident, then you got to let go of yours. And if they can't let go of theirs, that's a problem.
How do you define love then? Because you're so different when you explain things. What's your perception on that? And I don't even mean in a relationship. I mean just loving your children or.
I'm talking about Buddhist love.
Okay.
That's the answer to all of the problems. And no matter what you're doing, if you can come to what you're doing with the other person with love, no matter what they're doing, they could be yelling at you or screaming at you or calling you, you come with love.
Yeah.
Which is unconditional positive regard, is another way to say it, for that other person. Then that's what love is. That's what you do. That's what you do with your babies. I mean,
or your pets.
On your DNA, not what some people learn how to do with their babies, but genetically, yes, you just give unconditional love all the time.
What about people that hate themselves? There's a lot of people that are very, they just emotionally beat themselves up internally, mentally, physically, drugs, alcohol. How would you help them in your
Okay, this is very key. We're going to do it very quickly. When you are not living who you were meant to be, there's an ongoing frustration in your life between who you learned to be and who you live and who you were meant to be. So that frustration gets piggybacked because they don't make a different choice and just live who they are. That frustration gets piggybacked to anger, and it's self-directed. So it's negative self-talk all the time. And it's because it's a basic frustration between who they were born to be versus who they learned to be, or who they learned that they weren't. Not pretty enough, not good enough, not smart enough, not this enough, not this. Who you were born to be was how you won the lottery. So why do you want it to be different?
If programming, you think a lot of times, would you say parents programmed you or friend or what? How do you, some people seem to be able to break out and, just flow like they're riding like they're surfing. They're just riding that wave. And then other people just keep crashing on that wave.
I don't know too many people that ride the wave.
Yeah, me neither. That's my.
A lot of people who crash. This frustration between who they were meant to be versus who they learned to be from the culture, from school. I give this quick example that when we were in first grade, we took our first spelling test and we got 8 right and 2 wrong. And what did the teacher concentrate on? The 2 wrong, what you did wrong and how you did spell. Never the 8 right, never acknowledging the gift, never acknowledging the joy of the success of getting the 8 right. It just never occurs. And our society would be very different if we shifted to what people do right, not what people do wrong, and build on that.
I agree so much. We're always caught up with, and believe, I was never a good student, but I kind of knew my strengths, but I go where my energy leads me, but I don't want to say it's egotistical. I didn't really respect anyone I'll take advice, but a teacher, unless he was teaching specifically what I wanted to learn, I would just dismiss them. And I was so kind of goal driven to do whatever I wanted to do. And I don't know if my parents installed that in me. I guess they might have, but I was kind of.
There's a genetic component to people of a drive to live your purpose.
Yeah.
And that gets crushed by, I have a client that I work with, a 16-year-old kid, and the parents, they already know where he's going to college, what he's going to, and he just like, I just told him, I said, they are totally disconnected from being present with you. They have no idea who you are, what you want, et cetera, and so forth. So you can't react to them because they don't know who you are. So you have to be the smart one here. You have to create the information that you want them to know about, rather than to react to the stuff that they're focusing on.
Yeah, I get it.
Not only that, he's very happy now, and they're very happy now because they don't fight anyone.
Yeah, my parents always, and not to bring up parents, but they were always enthusing or just pushing me to really go after whatever I wanted to go after, which I was very fortunate. And I learned, hey, if I want to go make films, they're behind me. I want to go write a book or whatever, hey, I'm behind you. If you want to, create programs, or you want to do a podcast, a YouTube, I have them like, they're the wave kind of pushing me on the surfboards. And I have a lot of family members and friends that I was very fortunate that just kept installing confidence in me, where I really didn't even know what I was doing most of the time. But I just believed in myself. And I understand too, that at this point in time, say I want to do something and I accomplish it, I move on. I think a lot of people think like, I can only be this, and then they fail, or they're not getting the results, and then they quit. For me, I'm kind of just, always back to where my energy leads me. I'm always looking for something else to.
So can you teach them about pilots?
I think I know what you're talking about.
So rather than them having to put their whole kit and caboodle into something the next, because they're afraid to do that, I love pilots, which is, let's try this for the first quarter in the corporate world. Yeah. And we're not going to succeed. What we're going to do is we're going to do it so we can learn.
Yes.
So there's no expectation of, having to succeed and having to do it right and get a bonus if you do it, blah, blah, blah. But it's a way to try something without having to be accountable for success or failure.
I love it. Yes.
Pilot girl. Let's do it.
I'm all about it. Experimentation. I don't care if it's fitness. I don't care if it's whatever because a lot of people don't realize too, say you want to be a filmmaker and you think it's one way, and then you go do it. You realize this is nothing like what I thought it was.
Absolutely right. Because in your mind, when you're creating the future, you're controlling all the variables.
Right.
It can't possibly be that way because life happens. So then you start to do it and life happens, and then you realize that you don't have control over anything except how you can participate with what the universe decides it wants to bring you.
Yes. You're a genius.
No, I'm not. I'm really not. I'm just a normal human being.
You're crazy. I'm telling you, you're crazy. I don't mean that like that. Oh, my goodness. Well, this has been amazing. And how would people get a hold of you? I mean, I know how to get a hold of you, but tell them very quickly where they could get a hold of you, because you're a busy woman. I mean, and you're busy. Let's put it that way. So let me
just share with you one thing. So I do, a traditional 1 hour a week session with somebody, but I have a caveat to my work, which is that if any time during the week you can't get back to presence once you're learning, you must call me. So last night I got a text because I had to go to the bathroom, and I looked at the text, and he said, "Is our appointment today from 3 to 5?" And I wrote yes. And he said, "Go back to sleep." And and so I'm usually not up at 2 o'clock in the morning. But the issue is that if somebody calls me at 2 o'clock in the morning, they need me. They won't call me to say hi. They will call me because they need me. And if they need me, then I have to be there.
Faye, you're an angel. That's kind of what you are.
No, it doesn't feel like
you just have that component to you. And I honestly believe everything you do, and say, it's almost inspiring to help others. I'm not just saying that to say that. And you're always educating people when you speak, at least in my opinion. And I truly gravitate towards that. I appreciate that. I want to tell you that.
I also want you, it's really important that you notice that I really am human and I make mistakes and I screw up sometimes and I do things, crazy. And I don't strive for perfection. I try to bring my A game the best I can everywhere I go, but I also understand the human condition, and so it's very important to recognize that part of being like this is to be able to accept your strengths and your weaknesses and your faults and your gifts and your weaknesses and the things that, make you a human.
Absolutely. We're all human.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the one thing I always say to people, did your sperm get the egg? Yes. Okay, you're human. That's it. So you can be capable of all this.
Absolutely. Well, you're on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Dr. Faye MANDELL.
I'm on LinkedIn, but you can get me. My email is the best way to get me.
Yeah.
And it's faymandel03 at gmail.com. And it also, I also I like to take, I'm an old-fashioned girl, so I take phone calls as well, which is 401-578-9936. And I also have a website, which is, people should go to the website. It's really, I think it's helpful. It's called Being, BEING -present, PRESENT.com.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And so perfect, like smooth, so they can understand that. I'm going to put your information, obviously, in the About section there's going to be a shorter version for the podcast. And then I'm going to post it on YouTube as well. Yeah, it was wonderful speaking with you. I got to have you back as a reoccurring guest. And
anytime. I would like to, at one point, present the actual model.
Okay.
That's the key to the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah. How long would that take if me and you did that?
Well, it would be 30 minutes, like 20 minutes to present the model, and then 20 minutes to talk about. Well, there are five terms we have to define first. Then 20 minutes. So it would be an hour. We could do it in an hour.
That's perfect. So this will be a perfect introduction on who you are, and then we'll follow up with that probably after the new year.
Fabulous. Just fabulous.
Thank you for your time so much, Faye. You're one of the. I got introduced to you, and I obviously we have a mutual friend, Jason, and I always talk about you. I think every time I talk to him, I talk about you. Because
I'm so glad we finally had a chance to just, this was a lot about me. Sometime I would like to hear about you.
Oh, gee.
And your history and your development and what made you who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, that would sort of even the playing field a little bit, in a metaphor. And so maybe we could schedule that. We don't have to do it in a podcast, but we can, do it over a Zoom session or something like that, where you tell me exactly what I talked to you about today about me.
That'd be wonderful. And you know what? I'm in South Florida all the time. I'm here right now. I'm in West Palm at this minute in this hotel. So tonight we're going to dinner. But anyways, I'm going to be coming out. I come out here pretty often. We just got to go meet up with one another.
No question. I'm going to be in West Palm for New Year's Eve day and night.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'll be there, yeah.
We're going back tomorrow, but I'm always in Boca. I'm always in Florida somewhere. So next time we'll do it. And I know Rhea wants to meet you. I was telling her last night while we were watching football, we're eating dinner out, and we're watching the Miami game. And
yes, me too.
I said, I got a podcast with Faye, Dr. Faye tomorrow. And she's like, oh, that one you talk about? And she goes, I want to listen. Because I pulled you up even on LinkedIn while we're eating dinner, and I was reading what, and she's like, that's fascinating. Like so she goes, I can't wait to see this podcast. And I'm so happy we did it, because I've been wanting to do this for a long time.
I was, when the universe is ready, that's when things occur.
You got it. You nailed it, my dear.
That's the way it is. Namaste.
All right. Take care, my dear. We'll talk later.
Okay. Bye.